All right, good morning, afternoon. It's afternoon now. I'll get there in a minute. Perfect. Let me do a little quick introduction for the folks on the web. Thank you for joining us. Folks in the audience, thanks for hanging out and chatting with us a little bit. My name is Robert Thomas. I'm with a company called AkitaBox. We provide a facilities management platform, which we'll talk about more as the speech goes on. But I'm here today to hopefully successfully shape a little bit of a conversation for you. Shape a conversation around what capital planning looks like and talk a little bit about how new technologies as they developed in our industry provide an opportunity for us to maybe think about the way that we do this process. We lost me. There we go. All right, perfect. And so hopefully as we walk through, we'll see that sort of develop over time. And what I think you'll see, or what I hope you'll see, is that we'll talk through what capital planning looks like today, what's the goal, what are we trying to accomplish, and then we'll quickly pivot into, okay, well, what are some opportunities for us to adjust the way that we think about that, the way we pursue that and grow that in our organizations, and how can new technologies help us inform that process? And so to get started in this context here, I think it's important for us to define what we're after. So what are we trying to do when we do capital planning? Why do we do capital planning? And simply the most simple definition that I could put together for you all, I think that this concept ties really tightly to the mission of the organization, right? Because what we're doing in facilities is we're essentially supporting the work of our organization. We're providing the operating buildings or operating assets or operating systems that support the workflows or the mission of our organization. So really, capital planning is creating a spending plan that enables an organization to accomplish its mission. That's what we're after. That's the bottom thing. And so what's important to achieving that goal for us? I think that as we look at that, there's a few factors that are important, right? We need a clear picture of what we're dealing with, right? What is the building made up of? What does it look like? We need accurate data about that. We need to develop clear organizational goals. What are we trying to accomplish as an organization? And those goals need to be shared not just at the executive level, but also at the facilities level or at the engineering level, where those folks know what we're trying to accomplish. So as an organization, we can work together. Consistent framework for identifying prioritization. How do we prioritize our needs across our organization? Are we doing that in a consistent format? Does facilities have a different priority as the executive level? We need transparency in the process, right? We need to be able to see what's going on so that we can think well about these things. And so those are the important factors, but what does this conversation look like today? And I think that providing a benchmark here will sort of help shape the rest of our conversation. And so today, what you most often see is a firm is hired by an organization to come inside and run a process that looks a lot like this, right? They come on site, they collect data about the facility, they provide analysis into that data, and they create a static report, right? So this is typically what we call a facilities condition assessment. And this static report then is utilized by the organization to spend funds or to deploy capital in strategic ways. And then 3 to 7 years from now, what happens is we do it all over again, right? We hire that same firm or another firm to come in and work through that process for us and sort of deliver a plan for us to think through. And so one of the things that we're sort of arguing today is that that's a great process. It has value. We think that there's an opportunity to have greater value because we think there's some challenges to this process as it is. So what might those challenges be? What I see quite frequently is, static reports is a challenge. How often do facilities groups have to pivot based on a new reality of the organization, based on a change in, we've done this for the past 18 months for sure, but based on a change in budget. And the difficulty with a static report is you can't change, you can't pivot, right? It's sort of set, that sort of motion is sort of set for you. Another issue that we see is asset information isn't always reliable. Sometimes we have to, work with data that's not complete or work with data that's not fully there. And then the data is often decentralized, right? So sometimes facilities managers have data that doesn't get put into the plan. Sometimes there's, data that's just not looked at. Sometimes assets aren't even looked at. And we think that creates a little bit of a challenge for the industry. And so there's some key outcomes that this approach really brings to our organizations. One of those outcomes, I think, and this is my joke here, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And so when we don't have a great transparent process, we don't have the ability to pivot, then the capital gets deployed to the person who has the highest level of political savvy or the greatest voice or the one who speaks the loudest, not necessarily to the one who has the greatest need or the place inside the organization that has the most strategic outcome desired there. So here are a few others outcomes. We're obviously very short-term focused. Again, 3 to 7 years. We're looking at a very short cycle. Money is spent poorly or not at all, right? Sometimes because we don't have a great way to sort of communicate with legislative folks or folks who are deploying capital inside our organizations, we don't really get that capital that we ask for or deploy in the right way, or we can't communicate the reasons for that. A few other reasons listed here. Another that I think is really important, I'll use a story to illustrate this well, hopefully for you, is sometimes there's a lack of clarity between different levels of the organization. So I'm working with a large public university. This public entity would sort of say, if you go to their facilities office and ask them about capital planning, they would tell you, hey, we have an $800 million capital deferred maintenance problem across our 16 million square foot campus. And you say, okay, but that's a sizable problem. How are we addressing that? And they go, well, we tell our system that we have this problem, and we hope that they're able to sort of capture that revenue for us and get the legislator to approve that sort of funding to address this issue. But when I call the system capital management folks and say, hey, are you aware that this campus is asking for $800 million for deferred maintenance? So they go, yeah, they show me that number every time I'm there. And matter of fact, I don't believe them. And Robert, honestly, if I gave them $800 million, I don't think they'd use it on capital deferred maintenance. So that illustrates the problem we have, right? We have a problem where we don't have the ability to communicate and help people at a higher level of an organization see deep down into the granular data, the reality of what's going on the ground. And so I think that we have an opportunity with technology to sort of shape that conversation differently. So, okay, Robert, you said that several times, right? So technology gives us the opportunity to shape this conversation differently. What does that look like? Well, I think that we should utilize a little bit of a different approach. And I've just put an eye chart on the screen for you here. So let me walk you through my eye chart. Instead of the circular process where we recreate the report every 3 to 7 years, let's look at this from a platform process. What if instead of a PDF, at the end of your capital planning exercise, you walked away with a platform of data? And what if we utilize more than just one stream of input into this data cycle? What if we utilize things like a sole source of truth, or things like industry experts, or things like nationwide databases, or things like work order history and preventive maintenance history, and things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, and things like IoT devices, to all inform the platform of our capital needs across the organization? The beauty of that would be we'd be able to see more transparently just from top to bottom, right? And the beauty of that would be that we would be able to have better data. We would be looking at a more granular format. We'd be able to see across the organization a little more clearly than perhaps we are today. So let me talk through a little bit about each one of these items and how I think they have value or could have value to your organization. Before I do that, I want to say one thing. I'm not saying that to get started, you need to do all of this. Each one of these data streams has incredible value to your organization. Some of these data streams aren't even available to you yet because the technology hasn't fully been created or vetted yet. But I think that the place to start is to begin building a platform, begin building a database, and then begin taking in the data streams that you can from where you can to help inform that, refine that data, make it better over time. So let me walk you through these, and we'll tell you a little bit about what's available in the market today and what's not, and the values that each have. So digital twin. So every facility has a set of records about it, right? It's what is and what we've said about it, right? And so what we see is important from a digital twin perspective is when you recreate a real building in a 3D or in a digital context, you provide the opportunity for that record to be the source of truth, right? So it has all the data about the space, it has all the data about the structure, it has all the data about the assets, and that matches reality in the real world. When we do that, we have a quantitative source of truth that we can access and we can apply information to. That provides value because that gives us something to apply these other streams of data to. So one stream of data that is highly valuable for us are nationwide databases. Well, what are some nationwide databases? Well, there's things like RS Means, who we've partnered with to provide a benchmark for life cycle repair, replacement cost on assets at a granular level, which gives your organization, hey, here's what Lifecycle should potentially look like for your organization for these types of assets. Obviously, that needs to be corrected and adjusted based on your actual experience, but it gives you a benchmark. Another one is lifecycle data. All right, so what's the rest of my organization's experience with this asset? How has their lifecycle experience compared to mine? Should I make decisions based on what they're experiencing, or should they make decisions based on what I'm experiencing? Another is energy data that we get from things like building automation systems and other systems. There's even equipment recall information. Okay, well, we need to get an alert or be warned when there's an equipment recall on something that we have, right? And so that refines the data set that we get from our digital twin. Here's an example of what a nationwide database looks like. So this is a data point in the AkitaBox coming from our tool that shows the expected life cycle of this chiller. That expected life cycle can be adjusted based on the actual life cycle, but it gives us a benchmark for what we think it's going to last. It gives us a benchmark for the cost to replace that item. It gives us a benchmark for the expected repair cost over the life cycle of that item. Again, that your results might vary slightly, but this is what the database says across the organization, across the industry that we're seeing with this type of device. Okay, well, what's another data stream? So here's one that's a little more future focused. I would call this the bleeding edge of where we are today, because there's a lot of great IoT devices out there. They provide a lot of good information about, our assets in our buildings and how they might live, or how they might, survive, or what their life cycles might be, or where in that life cycle stage they might be, or even help us predict when a failure might occur based on things like a vibration sensor. We're not quite to the point where we have enough data yet to be able to manipulate that data and give you something actionable on it, but we think it's coming soon, where someone's going to be able to aggregate all the IoT data that we have and start informing conditions, start informing life cycle, start informing some of those items. But we think that's a valuable data stream to begin taking in and putting in a database and begin taking action off of. Another stream of data is our automated intelligence and our machine learning. Okay, well, what does that do? Well, right now, again, a little bit future state. This is coming, but not here. You can use AI to do things like predict failure, right? You can use AI to automate budgets. Okay, so if this happens in my real world based on what's happening, what machine data I'm getting from IoT devices, then the AI can adjust the capital plan and adjust the budget to reflect that reality in the field. Also, it can project tasks that are going to be needed inside my organization. From a machine learning perspective, we can do leak detection. Leak detection will inform capital expenditure, right? We can do asset identification. We can take pictures of assets and we can, categorize them and use that to pull in the nationwide database information on life cycle. And then finally, we can assess condition from a photo over time, right? We can teach a machine how to look at a rusty air handler and say, okay, this thing's not looking too good compared to a bright, shiny one type things. Again, all future state things, but things that have value and things where we see are going to be parts of our conversation about capital planning in the future and over time. And then finally, perhaps one of the most important things here, this data stream is a data stream that almost all of you have today, and it's your work order and preventive maintenance history, right? No one knows the condition of an item or an asset in a facility better than the facility manager, right? They work on it each and every day. They live with this item. They know how many times they've been out there. They know how much money they spent on it. Let's use their knowledge and let their knowledge inform the capital plan process, and that's incredibly important. Here's what that looks like in our system, where the work that a facility manager does on an asset in a real building actually affects the life cycle of that building. And so that's to us, that's an important piece. It's one of the most important data streams we have readily available to us right now today. And then finally, another one we have readily available right now today. And I want to be clear, we're not trying to kick the architect or the engineer out of the conversation, right? They have huge value to this conversation. They've got real world experience. They've got great training. Instead of letting them produce a report for us, let's let them curate the data that we already have. Let's invite them into the database. Let's give them an opportunity to go out and assess the facility, look at things again, and provide their input on top of the input that we have from all these other places. Okay. Well, there's a picture of some data streams and some technology, some new, some old, and how it can benefit our organization. The way that we think about capital planning, if we think about it just a little bit differently, not a lot differently, a little differently. And you go, okay, Robert, that sounds great, but if you're asking, do I just do all of this work for capital planning? And if so, does it really have that much value to me? I would say maybe, because that's a big part of what your organization does, and it can really affect the profitability of your organization, or it can affect the ability of your organization to manage capital well. But I also think that there's great value in just the database itself, because it gives you important decision support information, so that as you look at the database and as you work, your facilities teams have a much more intelligent system to work with. When they're in the field, they have a lot more data available to them, and we're providing that data at the point of attack where the work is actually happening, so they can see things like, where is this air handler in its expected life cycle? Does that affect the way that I turn wrenches today? Probably, maybe. Can I provide a data input based on what I'm seeing or assessing today that will help my boss as he goes to figure out how much money we're going to need to spend this year, things of that nature. So I would argue that there is value beyond just capital planning. I think it helps us accomplish our overarching goal a little better. That overarching goal is to manage our facilities in a more excellent way. And so I think that if we do this well, then I think those will be some of the effects beyond just ROI associated with capital planning. I think finally also, it'll help us know where to do preventive maintenance and when to do preventive maintenance, right? We sort of all do preventive maintenance today, and sometimes we just do preventive maintenance because we're supposed to, but we don't necessarily understand the efficacy of the preventive maintenance that we're doing. And if we have a way to measure results, then we have a way to inform the process. We have a way to do PMs in a way that say, well, hey, you know what, this machine, we do PMs on it, doesn't really change the life cycle, we're going to stop. But this machine, do PMs on it, we've doubled the life cycle. So we're going to stop wasting time here and stop emphasizing the time that we spend here, and that's going to have an ROI for our organization. So a couple ways that I think is valuable there. A few other outcomes for you, just a couple minutes left here of an improved approach. One, I think that the facility spend orients with the organizational mission. What I said way back in the beginning of our talk time today is, what are we doing when we plan for capital, do capital planning? But we're trying to support the mission of my organization. I think that this sort of approach gives us the ability to do that a little better. And it also, I think it aligns us, right? Because you can see straight from the boardroom all the way down into the boiler room, as we like to say at AkitaBox, what is happening at the ground level that's informing the decisions or the money that we're asking for. And so perhaps instead of fighting over what we're asking for, we're aligned together on how to accomplish that better, accomplish our goals better. I think we have the ability to run funding scenarios. So how many of you have sort of sat in the room and the CEO walks in and says, hey, I need to cut the facilities budget by $10 million or whatever the number is. What's that going to do to my facility condition? Well, how's that going to affect us? Well, if you're holding a PDF in your hand, you can't really say cut $10 million to the PDF. But to a database, you can game that out. You can say, okay, well, if I don't spend money on this and don't spend money on this, don't spend money on that, how's that going to affect my condition index? How's that going to affect the life cycle of the major assets in this facility? And you can go back to your CEO and say, here's the cost of, the facility's cost of making that change. Or, perhaps, I was able to work it out. Here's where we're going to be. This is tenable. We can move forward in this way. So this is a great, this is something we can accomplish together. And so those are all decision support, things that we can do well when we approach this problem. Perhaps not greatly differently, but just a little differently. So. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Again, my name is Robert Thomas. Our booth is right down there on the corner. If you would like to have more conversation about this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about this approach. And if there's room for us to have a conversation, we'd certainly love to. But thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.